Hey, what's up guys? So I was here just editing the video and I just wanted to record this quick intro just to point out something, right? So basically in this video I'm going to explain how a web application works. And at the beginning I start explaining kind of like the basics, the basic fundamentals, the easy stuff. And then as the video goes along, I start trying to get deeper and deeper into kind of like just going deeper into how everything works at a more specific level, everything behind the scenes. And you can kind of notice how as the video goes along and I try to like go deeper and deeper, asking like deeper questions like, okay, why? What's the why behind this and behind that? I start to almost struggle a little bit more to explain things, or I take longer to try to come up with like the answers. So I just wanted to point that out real quick and let you know that I think the video is super valuable if you watch it from start to finish, 100%. But I think this is just like the normal way that knowledge kind of works. It's like you learn the basics, and then if you really want to stretch your knowledge, you really want to like take your knowledge to the next level, take your understanding to the next level, you just have to like go deeper into it, ask the difficult questions, ask like, okay, what's behind this? Okay, if this works like this, then why? And just keep asking, keep going deeper, digging deeper into the information, into your understanding. And that's how you're really going to find those blind spots, or find those things that you thought you understood but you don't really understand as well as you think, is when you really start going deeper and asking those questions. Because you might be like, okay, so if this happens, then how does that happen exactly behind the scenes? And you thought you understood it, but then you're like, oh, wait a minute, like actually I don't actually understand what's going on. And then you have to like do more research, and that's how you kind of like expand your understanding, and you actually build mastery with things. So you're going to be able to see the whole process taking place. I think the video is actually super valuable, especially if you're a beginner, or even if you're advanced, more intermediate, whatever. You might still get a much deeper understanding of how things work behind the scenes, all different levels of abstraction, everything. So I've been talking for too long. Let's get right into the video. And I also recommend you guys do this exercise with whatever it is that you're trying to understand at a deeper level. Just sit there and try to explain it in as much detail as you possibly can. And in the process of doing that, you're going to realize certain areas that you thought you understood, but you didn't really understand that well. So that means that you have to, do more research, study that area a bit more. And you're also going to realize certain areas that you didn't even think of, that you're like, oh, I'd never even thought about this. And then you're going to have to go and learn some new things. So I think like doing that exercise, every time that you do it, you're going to gain like a whole new level of understanding, just by shedding a light on those blind spots, shedding a light on those weak points that maybe you didn't even think that you had. So yeah, now let's actually get into the video. Okay, so in this video, I'm basically going to explain how a web application works from start to finish. And this is not just for beginners. So if you're a more intermediate to advanced developer, you might still get some value from this. So let's just jump right into it. Basically, a web application has a client, a server, and then a database. This is like the simple, like basic version of it. So the client is basically you, right? This is you right here. You basically have your computer, your local computer on your house, and then you open up a browser like Google Chrome in this case, and you go to a website, right? That's how you put in google.com. So whenever you put in google.com, you're gonna make a request to a server, and then that server is gonna return you the actual website, that your browser, your Google Chrome is going to paint. So it's gonna return you the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript, the pictures, the videos, everything is going to return here. And so this is basically what you see up front. You just hit the server and the server returns you some information. Now, behind that server, there might be a database with information. So let's give the example of like YouTube, for example, right? Let's say you go to YouTube. So you go to youtube.com, the server is going to return you like the website, the HTML, the CSS, everything. But it also has to go to the database, and it has to like look up the videos, right? It has a database with videos, so it's going to show you, it's going to go fetch the videos on the database, and it's going to show you on your homepage whatever videos it's supposed to show you that are saved on the database.
It's also going to show you like whatever channels you're subscribed to. That's saved in the database as well. So that's basically how it works. Now, let's say you click on a video. Well, let's say that's on your local computer, on your browser. You're going to have the web page, everything with HTML, the CSS, everything. And you're going to have a button to click on a certain video, right? That's on your actual like local computer in the memory or whatever. So whenever you click on the video, now it's going to go to the server again, and it's going to have to like fetch the information for that particular video. So it's going to go to the server, it's going to go to the database. That's going to get like all the information that the website needs for that particular video. And it's also going to start fetching the video itself, so your browser can start playing that video. Now it's a little bit more specifically for example, a video on YouTube. You're not going to fetch like the whole video at once. It's going to be like streaming. So it's going to be getting like bits of the video at a time, but that's a little bit more advanced. So don't even worry about that right now. Let's just say you've clicked on the video. It's going to go to the server, going to go to the database, and it's going to return you all the information of that video, right? And the video itself. Now, let's say you go to the comments, right? So on your browser, on your local computer, you're going to have like a comment section, right? And that's going to be HTML, CSS. And it's going to have an input where you can type. So let's say you start typing your comment, right? You start typing like, yo, this was a very good video, whatever. That comment is going to start getting saved in your local memory of your computer, right? So you're going to be able to read the comment that you're writing. Now, what happens? That's going to be in your local computer until you hit the button, right? You hit the submit button or whatever, like accept, whatever. So whenever you hit that button or you hit enter, what's going to happen is your computer is then going to take that comment that you wrote, that text, and it's going to send it to the server, right? So it's going to travel through here, it's going to reach the server, and then that comment's going to get stored in the database. And then what's going to happen is probably like whenever you go to the video again, you're going to hit the server, you're going to get the comments from the database, and you're going to be able to see that comment that you just made, because now that comment is stored in the database with your name, your username, everything, right? So that's kind of like the basic concept. I hope it's pretty clear how this works. Now, the good thing is that, yes, you have one client, a server, and a database, but in reality, yeah, you can have as many clients as you want, really. You can have multiple people at once using the same server. So that's how websites work, right? You have the server up serving the website, and many people can access that same website at the same time. So what's going to happen is everyone is going to access the same website, and the server is going to send them the HTML, the CSS, all the code that the computer needs to basically run that front end on their local machine. But whenever they access the information, they're all going to access the same information from the database. So let's say that all these people, they go into the same video and they see the comments. If you make a comment, let's say this is you right here. You make a comment, that comment gets stored in the database. Everyone else is going to be able to see that comment because that comment is stored in the database and everyone's reading from the same database, right? So that's pretty much the basic concept of how it works. Now, obviously, in practice, like for example, for a big company like YouTube, one server might not be enough. So they might have one like front-end server, and then this server is gonna like distribute the requests across multiple servers, because it might be too many people, too many users at once, and one server cannot handle all those requests. So they might have like one server that takes the request and then it's going to like distribute that load between multiple different servers. And the same with databases, right? They might have multiple databases. So like one database doesn't have to do all the work from all the users at the same time. So that's kind of like how you can scale an infrastructure. Now this is, like I said, more advanced stuff that you don't need to worry about. If you're a beginner right now, you just need to understand the basic concept of you have the client. Well, you have the clients in plural. the server and basically a database. This is pretty much how it works. Now, if we want to get a little bit more deeper into how these requests are made, so let's say you're here on your local computer, you're running the website, and you click a button, right? You click on a video, and now you have to go to the server to get the information of that video. Now you might be asking yourself, okay, like how is your computer making that request to the server? Well, it's made with something called HTTP. So a lot of you probably already know about it, but if you don't, you definitely need to understand this. You definitely need to like look it up. But it's basically the format that the computer is going to use to make these requests. To see if I can show you kind of like the format of it, if you've never seen one. So you basically have like you have a header. Yeah, pretty much this is how an HTTP request looks like. It's just text. So you have a header that it gives you like the type of request. In this case, it's a post. So it can be get, post, put. There's different types of requests. But you're gonna have the type. So this is like the method. And then you have basically the URL that you're gonna be making the request to. And then you have headers and the body of the request and a bunch of different information here. So that's kind of like the protocol or the format that your browser is going to be using to communicate with the server. It's called HTTP. And there's different levels of it. Like if you want to get deeper into it, if you want to get more specific, what's going to happen is, let's say you click on the button and you need to do an HTTP request to the server, right? So what's going to happen first is basically your browser is going to have to call the operating system. Then the operating system is going to have to establish a TCP connection with the server, right? So they have to do kind of like a handshake. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So this is like the client and then the server. You have to first establish a TCP connection with the server. Boom, boom. So they send like some information and they establish a connection, right? So now that you've already established a connection with the server, then you can send the HTTP request through that connection. And then you basically send the request to the server and you get a response back from the server. So that's kind of like how HTTP requests work. Is you send the request and you get a response to that request. So it's like request, response, request, response. Pretty simple. But yeah, that's the basic concept of it. So if you want to even get even deeper, so it's kind of like multiple layers to what happens whenever you make a request to the server, right? So let me see if I can open this image. So first of all, you're in your application, right? You're inside of your browser, you click on a button, right? And you need to make an HTTP request to the server. That's gonna go from the application, then it's gonna go. You can kind of ignore these ones for now. Then the transport layer is when you create that TCP connection. So you first have to go and create a TCP connection with the server. But in order to make that TCP connection with the server, you need to know kind of like the IP address of the server that you're going to be creating the connection with. So that TCP request or that TCP connection is going to be traveling through the network. And to be able to reach that server, you're going to need to know the IP address. So that's going to travel through kind of like the IP layer. But then that IP packet or whatever it's called, then it's going to have to be transformed. Well, first of all, it's going to have to go from your computer to the router, right? And then from the router to another router to another router until it finally reaches the server. So for it to be able to go from your computer to the router, you're going to have to know like the physical address of the router. So you send it to the router and then the router figures out what the next router is going to be based on the IP address that it needs to reach. And then kind of lastly, the physical layer is that all that information, that request that you're sending is going to have to be transformed into basically ones and zeros that are going to have to be transformed into some kind of physical representation. So it might be electromagnetic waves. Let's say if it's traveling through Wi-Fi, right? That's going to be turned into electromagnetic waves that are going to travel through through space and to reach your router or whatever, or if it's going to travel through a fiber optic cable, it's going to be turned into light, which is also electromagnetic waves, but it's a different type, right? It's not radio waves, which would be Wi-Fi. It's radio waves, so it's a different frequency. If it's going to travel through the fiber optic cable, it's going to be light, so those ones and zeros are going to be turned into light. Or if it's going to travel through like a wire cable, then it would be turned into electricity. So you as a programmer, you don't need to worry about if the information is going to travel through radio waves or Wi-Fi, or if it's going to travel through light or electricity. You don't need to worry about that. That's why it's different layers of abstraction, right? So I just want to kind of paint like a general picture here without going too deep into it. But yeah, these are kind of like the different layers. So basically, to recap, let's say you're here on your computer, you're running the website on your browser, and you click a button and you have to make an HTTP request. Basically, in general terms, what's going to happen is from the browser is going to have to basically create that HTTP request, but to be able to send it, it's going to have to call the operating system to be able to create a connection, a TCP connection with the server. So basically, it's going to have to do this three-way handshake with the server. But obviously, in order to do that, you need to know the IP address of the server. So, and once you know the IP address, you need to send it to the closest router so that it can get routed to the final destination. But to be able to send it to the router, you need the physical address of that router. So that's kind of like a layer deeper. So it's the actual physical address of the router itself. And then to be able to send the information to that router, you're going to have to transform that information into ones and zeros, and then it's going to have to transform into some kind of physical representation. If it's through Wi-Fi that you're going to be sending it, it's going to be like electromagnetic waves. If it's through a fiber optic cable, it's going to be light. If it's a different type of cable, it might be like electricity. So basically, there's different layers. And then once everything happens, once you've established the TCP connection, then you can actually send the HTTP request through that TCP connection. And once the server processes that request, it gets all the information that it needs, it's going to return you a response also in the HTTP format. And that's when you receive basically the response to your request. So let's say you go into a video and you want to see the comments. So you do an HTTP request to receive the comments. You send the HTTP request to the server, and the server is going to return you an HTTP response with all the information from those comments. So it's going to give you a list of comments with like how many likes each comment has, who is the owner of the comment, etc., etc. And then your browser is just going to render that information dynamically or whatever. And that's basically it. You have your website on your local computer running with the information that it got from the server. So I hope this video wasn't too long or too complicated. I tried to go into a little bit more detail than just like the basic levels, but obviously if you're just watching this and hearing this kind of information for the first time, don't expect to like understand it the first time. This is just kind of like to give you a little bit of an overview of how everything works, just so you have an idea. But obviously you have to go deeper into each one of those topics and like really understand it, etc. This is just kind of like a summary of how things work from a bird's eye view, from a general level, and maybe, you know, help you understand a little bit the big picture of things. So yeah, this is pretty much how a web application works. I hope the video was interesting and educational, and see you on the next videos. Remember to subscribe, like, share with your friends, all that, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, see you on the next ones.